right. Is everybody seeing three lovely people with a sapling and a big More Trees Now logo on their screen? Yes?
Yes.
Wonderful. Perfect. Okay, so my name is Marga. I think it's the Dutch for, I think the English equivalent is Marge. So if the is very difficult, I also listen to Marge if you call me that. So that's just as a little housekeeping thing. I started with a few other green enthusiasts. I started More Trees Now, or Meer Bomen Nu in Dutch, about 4.5 years ago. We are currently going into our fifth sapling rescue winter here in the Netherlands. And it's a collaboration in the Netherlands of three organizations: a farmers organization, a climate organization, Urgenda, which is who I work for, and a local ecologist who invented this method. And our shared goals were basically three things: to stop global warming, to increase our biodiversity, because the Netherlands has about 85% biodiversity decline in the last 100 years. I think we're really at the bottom rung in Europe. I think the average in Europe is about 60%. I think the UK is currently at 62% biodiversity loss in the last 100 years, the last time I checked. So we really felt an urgency to get going. And we wanted to do that in a way that gave everybody, whether they have a lot of knowledge or not a lot of knowledge at all, the opportunity to participate and do something to help our environment. I'm going to skip a bunch of slides because I didn't really limit it to 20 minutes, so I'm going through the slides as I need. And we are, like I said, we're going into our fifth winter. And the core idea is that a lot of every tree makes hundreds of saplings every year. That is a natural regenerative process that the tree goes through. And a lot of these saplings are routinely destroyed, either in maintenance or to restore heaths or peat bogs or to clear a pathway. And we found that these were a source of free indigenous planting material that was readily available if only people are willing to pick them up, to rescue them from places where they cannot mature. So we've rescued in the Netherlands over 2 million saplings so far and given them away for free to farmers, to citizens, to all types of green initiatives. We have over 3,000 of these harvest events, as we call it, sapling rescue events, distribution events, planting events, and we have about 150 locally run tree hubs, which are collection points for saplings that are unwanted or undesired, to give them towards people who want them. And we started this in the winter of 2020, and we started with the call: we know we can find 1 million trees here for free in the Netherlands. Who wants them? Because that's always the first question. Are people even waiting for these trees? That resulted in this picture of these green dots. We thought, oh, we're going to have a nice map with people who want our trees, and that just became one gigantic blur of people who were waiting for trees. So, okay, the desire for trees was there. It's once you put the call out and you start with people who want it, it's all over. And then we started to put the call out to foresters to say, what is your regular maintenance? Are you mowing down or removing saplings in your regular work? That could be useful for distribution. And those ended up being the red dots that you see in the top right corner. So like I said, we started in 2020. We did about 500,000 trees in the first winter, which was above any and all expectations, because we were just the five of us starting this campaign. So we didn't really anticipate to have a gigantic amount. And at the same time, Corona came, and then a pear tree grower heard through the media of our first events of sapling rescue, thought we were very sympathetic, and said, I can't sell these 200,000 pear trees because of Corona, so I'm going to give them to you. Since you are giving trees away for free, then you can give these away as well. So that gave us so much media coverage and attention. We created a pear tree traffic jams because people were all the way down the highway standing in line for a pear tree, which gave us so much media attention that a lot of people also subsequently came to help us at our sapling rescue events, which allowed us to do 500,000 trees right off the bat in our first winter. But that also presented us with our first problem because we were just 5 people, and all of these people, all of these events were arranged through an Excel sheet and email, which was complete chaos. So when we went into our second winter, we thought, okay, we need to make an upgrade and we need to do a little better. We did almost 500,000 trees again, but now just purely with rescued saplings. And part of the way that we did that is we started to craft a kind of eBay for rescued saplings. We put all the participants, the people who want trees, the people who want to take care of them, the people who want to rescue them, and the people who have them on offer, into one system and try to devise something that had them talking to each other instead of just the core group of us who were doing organizing the campaign. So that became what we called the tree planner because you're planning where to get your trees and when. That also allowed us to start monitoring the saplings. So we found out that last year the saplings almost 80% survived. The year after we had quite a bit of drought. So we saw that it went to about 73, 75% of the saplings surviving. Then we grew again. We did our highest amount yet in the winter of 22-23, about 500,000 trees again. But this time, a German-Dutch volunteer on the border thought, hey, this is a nice idea. What if I start trying this at home, which is a few kilometers across the border? And I involve my family and I go see what saplings I can rescue in Germany, because in Germany they had some issues with large swaths of forest dying because of disease, and they had a shortage of trees for their initiative. So they tried it there, and practically the same thing happened. A sympathetic grower about to retire heard of us in the local media and again offered about 200,000 trees. So it kind of blew up again, allowing us to almost do 750,000 trees in one winter. We devised the Tree Planner 2.0 that season to get rid of the bugs and also get feedback from volunteers using the system, what they wanted out of it, and to make it work smoother. And this was last winter. We've reached our 2 million saplings, or 2 millionth sapling. We have over last year, we started with about 10,000 participants in the third version of the Tree Planner. Currently, we're going into our fifth winter, and we have about 25,000 people participating in the system, talking to each other, exchanging saplings, organizing sapling rescue events. We started in Germany again. We also got in contact with the first groups in the UK who were interested in copying this method. And this season, we're also starting some pilots in France. And over the course of this process, it really has been a trial and error type of methodology, updating tools and gathering feedback from volunteers to craft this method that we can decentralize the organization and have volunteers share knowledge in order to organize more sapling rescue events. And this, in a nutshell, is the methodology. We call it circular forestry because as every tree makes saplings that can be removed from any particular location, in 10 years, the planting location that has planted this rescued sapling, that tree will also start to make saplings again. Not all of the saplings may be able to stay at that location, and the cycle starts again. So it's a self-regenerative process and therefore infinitely scalable, because the more nature you create, the more nature creates back for you. There's also another participant in this cycle, and that is the tree hub. And a tree hub is really nothing more or less than a temporary collection or storage points for saplings if this trees cannot be immediately picked up from the original harvest site. Sometimes they are necessary, sometimes it just immediately goes to the planting location. A lot of the tree hubs in the Netherlands are community gardens because they have their vegetables in the spring and in the summer, and in the winter the beds are empty, so you can dig some trenches to temporarily heal in some saplings. And the general core of this is that ecology, or the thinking of ecology, thinking in systems and creating more space for life in a healthy ecosystem is the solution. So we try to incorporate that in our thinking of the methodology. For instance, the saplings that we are giving away, they have needed no fertilizers, they needed no additives, no extra land, no, how do you say that in English? No, no pesticides. That was the word I was looking for. So it's really you add 5 years to your CO2 capture by using saplings that have not needed anything to grow. And at the same time, these are saplings that would otherwise die and disappear, and that CO2 would be released again into the atmosphere. But by reusing the sapling, the CO2 that has already been stored in that tree remains stored, and just adds on, can keep on capturing CO2. It also improves biodiversity because the places where the sapling is removed from, it's usually removed from the place with a reason, either, for instance, to restore a peat bog, which is also necessary for, a peat bog is quite a different type of diverse landscape and has a different role than a forest. So by restoring that piece of ecosystem, you can use the access from that to create a new piece of ecosystem of a different type. And on the planting location, it's quite obvious how it increases biodiversity. There's a new tree there that provides food and sustenance and shelter for a bunch of animals. It's also an ecological mindset because it is entirely circular. It doesn't presume that there's any waste. It presumes that there's exponential natural growth, in the sense that an ecosystem, if it's healthy, if it's strong, its biodiversity will grow. It will create more space for life, and it usually does so exponentially. And we see when an ecosystem is healthy, because that's when it will provide us with the most excess. And lastly, it's a community-led movement. We started with 5 people, and we haven't quite grown from that because we are a decentralized organization, and it's just local communities adding themselves into this network and starting to rescue and exchange trees. Now, the tree planner that I have mentioned, I'm going to quickly run through it so that you can understand what we've built. It's also where you will find the event for next week that Mick has created. I believe Mick is probably in this meeting right now, as the sapling rescue event at, I think, Grangewood Park. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, that's right, in East Hunsbury. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mick. So this is a picture of our system, in how we try to connect all of these places where you can rescue saplings with the places who want saplings. This is if you are a participant, is what it would look. Some people like to put on goals for themselves, or I want to rescue 1,000 trees or 200 trees or whatever you name it. The events that they either organize or want to participate in, they will find on the left side of their profile. And the events that are nearby, you have the ability to put in a range. of 25 kilometers to 200 kilometers to 250 kilometers, regardless of how far you want to search for your events. And you can sign up for them if it's a rescue event that you want to participate in. And you can either participate as a helper or as somebody who comes to pick up trees from that particular event. So these are, for instance, the events. I believe I used a screenshot here that shows the event from next week, where on the far right side, it's covered up by the gallery for me, but I hope you guys see it. On the
Yeah, we can see it. It's quite small, but I think we'll send a link out after this anyway, so that people can go in and know what they're looking for.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
On the left side is the menu of all the places and all of the events. And then if you're in it, you can see here the event at Grangewood Park. And on the far right, you see two buttons, which means I'm going to help out or I'm going to pick up trees from this particular event. And here are, for instance, all of the harvest locations. A harvest location can be provided either by somebody who has the permission or by the forester himself. And if you sign up for a harvest event, a harvest location, you usually give practical information such as where to park, what trees you can rescue there, where you can harvest, if there are any risk associated with the area, and so forth. So really, when you sign up a harvest location, the forester gives you all the information that you need to get started in that particular area. We also have all of the tree hubs in the same system. Now, the tree hubs are the places that are willing to receive or pick up saplings, temporarily store them, and distribute them again. And lastly, all of the destinations. So everybody who wants trees can sign up for them and pick an event on where they want to pick them up. If they go through the hubs, you will also see it's maybe a bit small, so you probably will see it once the slides are sent to you. But there's information in that list insofar as how far it is, how much they have in stock. If you click on one of the hubs, you see more information at what their particular stock is of which particular tree. And the same goes for the planting locations. Once they've picked them up, they are able to view what they have on their location now. And they're also able to let us know how much is surviving of the trees that they have picked up. There's also a function so that people can chat with each other. And this is, for instance, what this is a bit zoomed in from last year, what a list of events can look like. Now, I took the example from the event from next week. If you organize an event or if you're clicking on an event to view it, this is what you will see inside the tree planner if you're in the system. It's a description, it's photos. You can sign up on the top rung, I'm helping or I'm getting trees. And the most important thing in that, if you're an organizer, is that here, public page, you have a link that allows you to share your event also with people who are not in the tree planner. So if you're building your community and there's not a whole lot of people in the tree planner yet, that is generally how you share it. And that's probably, if you've viewed the event already, this is how you would have seen it. This is East Hunsbury Grangewood Park. It's a small description of what you're doing, and you're able to sign up on the bottom here. It looks quite simple. The idea is quite simple, but still, if you're organizing for about 20, or you're building something for about 20,000 people, each with their own desires and wishes, and every time that you're transplanting trees, there are new things that you run into. For instance, in our first season, we thought, oh, it will be a really good idea if we have planting locations reserve the trees that they want at the tree hub. But we immediately got rid of that the season after because it made people a little greedy, and they would reserve all of the most rare trees for themselves. Well, if you have, I don't know, about 5 walnuts in your tree hub, you might want to equally divide up those 5 walnuts with different amount of people. But no, if you give people the chance to reserve, what they'll do is they'll reserve the full 5 walnuts for themselves. So those are things that you find out through trial and error that we then immediately got rid of because like, okay, this is not what we want. We want to be a social project. It's an equal divide of whatever you rescue. Um, so we're getting rid of that again.
So can I just ask a quick question then? I totally understand from how much effort it might well be to keep the system up to date and working and giving everybody access. So is that done by the original 5 people? Is it something that you've had a software company come in and do for you? How does that work?
That is still done by us, yes, by the
Okay.
5 people. We allow people who use the system to give us feedback, and then in the
Mm-hmm.
summer months, when you're no longer transplanting, because you can only rescue saplings in the wintertime
Yeah.
when the trees are dormant. In the summertime, we update the system and get really try to get it as close to practice as possible.
Okay.
So a lot of the time you think of something that might work in theory, but then you start actually using it and you notice, oh, this is actually not how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Another example of that is at first the system worked that a forester could contact a tree hub and reserve an amount of space in that tree hub and say, this is the amount of trees I'm bringing to you. Um, but that turns out that is not how it goes at all, because when you start your harvest day, you don't know exactly how much you're going
Mm-hmm.
to rescue. It depends on the amount of volunteers, on the soil type. Clay is much heavier than sand, so when you're rescuing in sand, it's quite easy to rescue thousands
Mm.
of saplings because they go out of the soil so easy. When you're in clay, it's more likely that you'll end up in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Um, and you can make an estimation, but you don't know for sure. So what we saw is that a lot of the harvest locations desired, no, I want to contact a tree hub without already having to reserve a space. And then once I know, at the end of the day, then I want to get in touch with them again. So it's all these little small things of
Yeah.
how does
Yeah.
it actually work and
Mm-hmm.
how can we organize it in such a way that it's comfortable for everybody
Yeah.
to use.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Thank you. And just a follow-up question to that then. Um, are there paid people, or is it all done on a voluntary basis, even from the centre?
It's 90% volunteer.
Okay.
And how it works right now in the Netherlands is that we've asked provinces, because in the Netherlands, provinces are the level of government that are responsible for um, maintaining our natural environment.
Yeah.
So I think environmental is in their wheelhouse. So we asked them for a contribution to a community manager so that every province has one that can uh, uh, guide the volunteers in that given area. So, for instance, tree planner help, but also media, communication, organizing volunteer event, organizing
Mm-hmm.
education for the volunteers to get started with this. And the 3 main foundations that started it, so Urgenda itself
Mm-hmm.
and the Caring Farmers and the Ecologist,
Mm-hmm.
we also do a part of fundraising, for instance, to build something like this, like the tree
Okay.
plant.
All right.
And then we make it available to other parties for free.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Of
Let
course.
you carry on.
So, like I said, small steps, big effort, because we are really try to build something that fit with the reality that volunteers are visiting, uh, the reality that volunteers are experiencing on the ground, so that they could all organize this. This was made last season, and this is also kind of the same process that we had while making the tree planner. It's all a gathering of community knowledge, of best practices and tips of how people usually organize their events. We also now usually have annual events where volunteers meet each other and exchange best practices on how, for instance, safely transporting the sapling. Most people now have a ute bag that they put in a nearby waterway very quickly before they transport the saplings that they have just scooped out, so that there is less of a chance of the roots drying out from either wind or sun by the time that they got to the tree hub. These are like a million very small and different things that combined create a lot of tools and manuals of best practices and tips that we've now also translated into other languages. So in short, and then I think I'm going to go towards my ending here. This is what a sapling rescue day looks like. You have a location, in this case, East Grangewood Park, where there are saplings who will not be able to survive into maturity. You usually discuss with the forester basic things such as risks, logistics, practicality, where to park, where to put a possible tow hitch where you can transport your saplings with, but also the types of species that you can harvest or particular areas where you can harvest. Then you prepare your day, you get all of your materials. We've created checklists for this. And then you make it in the tree planner and you invite people to join. At the harvest itself, it is important to note that you harvest between roughly your knee and your shoulder. If you harvest a sapling that is smaller than your knee, it will quickly be outcompeted by grass once it is transplanted. But once you harvest a sapling that is higher than your shoulder, it is unlikely that with the spade you will be able to take enough of the root system that is going to have to support what is above ground. So we found that saplings that are between 50 to 150 centimeters have the best survival rate. If you do higher than that or lower than that, they need a lot of extra care. And with the amount of trees that is usually planted, we always transplant with the assumption that they're going to get little care. Then around halfway of your day, the group splits in two, and one group starts to sort, bundle, and label the saplings, because it's quite important if you want to know what your impact is, how much saplings you've done, and the people who are going to pick up these saplings, whether that's a tree hub or a planting location, want to know what they're getting. So we usually sort per species. And we also bundle in a steady amount. So it's either always 20s or always 50 saplings in a bundle. So then when you're counting the bundles, it's quite easy to know what you have in total. And then the bundle is labeled with the type of species it has. One of the educational things that we usually do at a harvest day, and what we can always recommend, is that you get an example sapling at the beginning of your day. One sapling of each of the species that you're planning on harvesting over in the given area, with the name of the sapling on a little piece of paper or a little sign, so that when the sorting comes, the vast majority of people will have no idea what a sapling looks like in wintertime. You can see the buds, you can see the bark, but most people will have no idea what species the sapling is. And by already putting an example sapling down of the species that you're going to be harvesting, it becomes a game of just matching the sapling to the one that looks like it the most. And that's how you slowly learn. I think when I started, I knew a handful of saplings, and not even in wintertime either. And in a few years, just by doing that and just having them in your hands all the time and just seeing them over and over again, you learn tens of different species by the end of your season. And lastly, you transport them. And this is either something that the harvest leader, for lack of a better word, arranges, or something that you ask of the local tree hub if they are willing to provide it. You put all your bundles on a tow hitch, and that is usually also the moment where you take out the tree planner app and you put in the tree planner app. We were at East Grangewood Park, tree hub or planting location A or B has come to pick it up. And this is the amount that we rescued today, and this is where it's going. So you do like a little transaction form in the app. So we always know where what saplings is. And this is kind of important for a number of reasons. One, to measure your impact, because you want to know what you've been doing. Second, so that you can monitor how well the saplings are doing, because you want to know that you haven't done it for, well, it was a nice day outside, but you also want to know that they're doing all right once they've gone to their final location. And lastly, it's also a type of risk management. So say there was something unhealthy in that forest that the forester, while you were in step one, choosing your location, you were discussing the risks, there was something that he was unaware of, and something got transported from the location to another location. By these transactions, you could track it to its origin point and prevent other stuff like that in the future. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I have a little clip from the last time we visited the UK that I could maybe play as the final bit before we go to the questions.
This is Trees for Free. Every tree makes hundreds of saplings a year, a lot of which do not survive. On a harvest day with more trees now, we save excess or unwanted saplings for a second chance, like this ash. After we scoop out the saplings, we sort them by species, bundle them by species, and label them. Then we take them to a tree hub where they can be healed in and given away later. Let's go for more trees. Now!
Okay, I think I'll leave it at that. Do you guys have any questions for me? I see a couple of things.
There's a couple of questions. I suppose the first question is a very easy one, which is, will you be able to share the slides with us after the meeting?
Definitely.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think so. 'Cause there's a lot of information there that I think people would find very useful to refer to, so that would be great. And David has asked a question whether this has resulted in communities coming together in other environmental work and improvements outside of tree planting.
Yes, definitely. We especially noticed that the tree hubs that we've started, they are often used for multiple things now. So next to, I could stop sharing maybe. Ooh. Especially the tree hubs that we've started are also starting to be used for other things. So we were mostly focused on saplings and trees and bushes as well with that. But also plants have been brought in. A lot of tree hubs now have opening hours where people from the community can drop plants, saplings, and all types of greenery that they don't want or need anymore to give away to their neighbors for free. It's become a community gathering point in a lot of places. Also, some groups have also participated in creating flower meadows. So next to shrubs and saplings and cuttings, we're also now getting into seeds. Also, people have been sharing acorns that they found of very particular acorn trees that they have been growing in tree hubs and giving away. So once a community is formed around this idea of sharing and redistributing and reusing, you find that you can also do it with a lot of other greenery.
That's really lovely to know. Thank you. That's what a good question, David. Does anybody else have any questions that they would like to ask?
I'd like to know a little bit about the tree hubs, Marge. If you, who is, how did you find your tree hubs? Is that a tricky thing? People willing to give over space on their farm or something for how long would they? How did that work? If you could talk through couple of examples of that, that would be useful.
Course. So we started with the network of farmers that was connected with us, because a lot of farmers do have a lot of space, especially if their vegetables aren't in the ground in the winter, they have a lot of leftover space. So actually quite a bit of them said, you can come here I'll dig the trenches for you. This is the space that I have. And as long as it's gone before March, then we're completely fine. Which suited us just fine because our latest date for giving away the trees is the first weekend of March. Then we really want everything to be empty because before spring starts, the tree should be back in soil. And also it was like I said, community gardens a lot. They have been our favorite because rather than space, it's mostly been you need a core group of people, volunteers nearby the tree hub who are willing to run it. There are a lot of people who were willing to offer up space, but it was more of an offer of here you can use it if you need it. But the most active and useful tree hubs are where people are involved in the tree hub, are picking up the saplings. They can cycle over really quickly if they notice something is wrong, or they can make sure that all the fine roots are really covered, and they can do regular checks whether everything is still neat and tidy. That's a different level of involvement. So I think people who offer space, we have over 200 of those. I think if you look at people who are actively involved in their tree hub, which also means that those are tree hub that are actively in use, it will be around 100 or so. But it can really be anything because there are people who started tree hubs in their front yard. They dug 2 trenches, community park nearby where they do their harvest. If you dig a trench of 5 meters or even 2 meters, you can already put a few hundred saplings in there. 5 meters, I would say you can put 500 saplings in there or so, maybe more actually. It really depends on how tightly you can put the root systems and the bundles together because you really want them as tightly as possible. That only ensures better survival. So you also don't need a whole lot of space. So I think the smallest one is one in somebody's front yard. And the biggest one that we have was at a farmer who also during the pear tree event had about 16,000 pear trees healed in on his land. In the clay, though, that was a bummer but I mean, we were grateful that he wanted to keep the pear trees there. So yeah, does that answer your question a little bit? Wonderful.
Thank you. Yes. Rupert, you've got your hand up, I think.
I think you're still muted.
Yeah, I know I am. Yes. There we are. Right. Hello. I've been in trees all my life as a fruit grower and doing forestry in other parts of the world. So there are several things that come to mind, but locally, we find it difficult to find sites for trees because most of the land in our village is owned by one big landlord who does forestry. So he doesn't really want people messing about in his forests. So that is one problem, but that's our problem. What do you do about tree guards, for rabbits and stakes and things like that? Do people supply those, or do you have a stock of them, or you sell them to people? How do you manage that side of things?
Well, we give people who sign up to get trees planting advice, but as they get the trees for free, the stuff around the tree they have to arrange themselves. So if there's any protection that they need for that particular tree, then that is for them to provide. We do give them advice on what trees to pick up, what fits with their soil type, what is the type of landscapes they can plant and how to do it. So think of a hedgerow or agroforestry types or some things that I don't know the English translation for, but
you've done so well.
we have a list of types that they can look up on our website of what they want to plant, and then there's a bunch of information there on how to do it and how to take care of them as well.
Yeah, it would be good to make sure that people are planting good native trees if possible, and not too many what do you want to call it? Trees from other countries that have come in.
Yeah.
I think that is a problem, isn't it? What was the other thing I was going to say? No, it'll come back to me. I'll ask another question in a moment.
Okay,
Of
all right. So I'm just going to Isha put a question into the chat about how easy is it to join it locally. So I think the answer to that ought to be very easy, but I don't know whether you just want to cover that, Mick. I think the good thing to do might be to start by joining the Facebook group, but
yeah, we have a local event which is on the tree planner, which you saw in the presentation. That is on the 26th of October at East Hunsbury. Don't go to the wrong place. So we're going to be at the library, and then we're going to walk the harvest site there. So I would urge anybody who has an interest to register on the More Trees Now website and just put your name down, and that'd be good. So that's how easy it is.
excellent. So I think we'll definitely share a link to that. We might manage to put it into the chat. If not, it'll definitely go out with the meeting notes. I think the other thing to say is that there is a Facebook group which Mick has set up, which is called Northampton Community Woodland Volunteers, or Northamptonshire Community Woodland Volunteers.
Northamptonshire Woodland Community Volunteers.
Sorry, I always get that the wrong way around. So if you can look for that on Facebook, that will have ongoing news about events that are happening and anything else that people might be interested in. It's sort of forming a community around this process, which I think is an excellent thing to do. Does that answer your question, Isha?
Yes, it does. I'm just
okay.
All the searches now.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Marga. I was just wondering what you found to be the best ways of finding people who wanted trees once they're harvested. What were the most fruitful avenues?
Actually, that last step has been the easiest one, usually. And not to play too much into stereotypes about my country here, but as soon as I put free trees in the news,
I think that would work here too.
And rows of people who wanted them. So rather than finding the people who want the trees, because if you put the call out there for free and we're going to help you, there's actually quite a lot of response so far. And still after 5 years and 2 million trees counting, there are still people signing up for it. The rather biggest challenge was to get that supply going smoothly, and also to find a way to give, I think we must have given over 30,000 people trees so far, to give them advice and knowledge and tools on how to plant these trees appropriately. So that has been a bigger challenge than to find who wanted them, because we have created more than our. I'll see if I have a picture of a tree traffic jam that we've created in the slides that I had. Maybe it would be fun to see.
Whilst you're searching, there are two things in Northampton. The RAIN project, which is, I don't know what the acronym is, but it's a West North Hants project to plant trees around a flood area in and around, I think they've got about 3 areas that have nominated. So they, I would hope, will take our trees. We have some contacts in there that we can do that from. From our last harvest, there were 7 different organisations took trees. So that's another one. And also Harborough Woodland Community Volunteers, they're a little bit more tuned in with the farmers, and farmers use them for hedging as well. So they will take all the trees that we actually dig up if nobody else will. So there's 3 options for our trees.
Yeah. This is the picture I was talking about. This on the left side, you see a whole row of cars. I think this was the first event that I organized in The Hague about now 4 years ago. I wasn't in the beginning sure if people would be coming, so I put the call out far and wide, and then I monitored it, and people signed up, and it was all within reasonable limits. I hoped that I would get about 200 people, and I had about 4 hours to distribute them. And then I didn't look at the sign for a few days, and I looked at it again, and it was 700 people, and I was like, oh, I should close this right now because there are 700 people. And not only that, there were 700 people who all came an hour early before the distribution moment was about to start, because they all wanted to make sure that that hawthorn that was in shorter supply than the birch, that they would get that hawthorn. So this experience, it was super fun, and it's stressful at the same time. I always call it a positive escalation of things, because it's great that so many people want trees, so it's only positive in that way. But you also need to organize some things for that. So, for instance, this is where the function in the tree planner came from, to automatically shut off enrollments when they go over a certain threshold, and the concept of time slots for people picking up the trees also came from here. And this was a traffic jam, as you can see, that went almost all the way to the highway when we were on the edge of the city. So finding people who wanted the trees was has not been a problem so far.
So have those changes that you've put in place mean that nobody turns up and goes away without trees, so that people don't turn up and get disappointed? Okay, because I'm guessing on that first day there probably wasn't enough for all of those 700 people, or did everybody get something?
Actually, everybody got something.
Okay, well, that's really nice.
I just put caps on how much people could take.
Okay.
Solution. What also really helped is that at the end of it, there happened to be a load of trees arriving from a harvest day that had taken place the same day that I was given my redistribution, which was great timing, because there were still people in line for them. It added some more new diversity to the amount of trees that we were giving away. And it saved us from healing those trees in, because they were immediately to the swath of people still waiting.
No waiting time at all. Brilliant. Thank you. Any further questions? Have you remembered what your other question was yet, Rupert? Or has anybody else got a question?
I've got a quick question, if I can ask.
Yes, please do.
This isn't meant to be controversial. One bit of it might be, but the other bit might not be. The first one is, I can't believe that it's just the freeness of the trees, i.e. the trees are free, and that's what's driven the floods of traffic to you. But maybe that is correct culturally, I don't know. But there must be an ecological message behind it as well, in terms of nature and nature recovery. And I think we still have a challenge with that. Certainly in the UK, and I think definitely in our area. Richard is off camera, but he's online there. Richard Hollingham in Cretan. We do have villages that have a desire for what I would call bowling greens, where trees are a necessary evil. Richard recognizes where I'm talking about, and plenty of space arguably for trees, but a desire to keep them as lovely, beautiful green, mown to within an inch of its life to look beautiful, so you could go out and play bowls on it. So I think we've got a challenge to overcome there, and I don't know whether that's been part of your messaging or whether it's just been the fact that they were free. The second bit is maybe more controversial. Have you done all of this without any engagement with any of your local authorities? Because I don't know what the council structures are within the Netherlands. But we have broadly two tiers. We have a unitary council, which is developing a tree strategy, which most of us here have had some insight to, with varying views, is fair to say, but there is an ambition to move from a 9% canopy cover to a 20% canopy cover by 2045, with no budget, but that's another issue. and we also then have parish councils. And I wonder whether you've done all of this without any engagement with any of those authorities, or whether you've engaged with them. And if you have, what have you done to do so? I hope that makes sense, Marga.
No, it really does. I start with the ecological messaging. What helped is that we had a very green farmers organization right from the beginning. We gave the first 50 to 100,000 trees away to farmers who wanted to get started with agroforestry. So that was our first pilot event, because we wanted to have a bit more of a controlled environment where we could test out the methodology. And we kept that messaging and that networking strong. So we just grew our rather dark green base from there, of people who are already very busy with planting trees or planting food forests, and who are actually just helped by the freeness of the trees to make their a project more doable, because a lot of budding pioneering initiatives, they're always lacking capacity and money when they're trying to do something that they feel is of intrinsic value. So we already had that base, and the fact that the trees were free actually allowed us to draw in a bunch of people who didn't even know what the word biodiversity meant. We have harvested with schools where kids pulled a sapling out of the ground and they were astounded that there were roots attached. So it has also been quite an educational tool to draw people in with the messaging, this is free and fun. And then you have an opportunity to tell the story of ecology to people who would otherwise never engage with it. So it's kind of a two-pronged. So yes, we have our steady base of people, growing base of people who are really into the ecology part of the story, and whose life we're just making a little bit easier. And then you have the people who just came for the free sale, and are now staying for the story. So that's the first bit. The second bit is we have actually engaged with a lot of our governmental levels. We were able to develop a part of the tree planner with help from our Ministry of Agriculture and Nature. Back when they had a lot of ambition towards increasing the tree cover, especially in light of our nitrogen crisis. I don't know if you heard a lot about that, but we are the most densely, one of the most densely populated countries in Europe by people, but also by animals, because our intensive agriculture is so incredibly large, and therefore we have a nitrogen problem. And a lot of our natural environments are quite critical and far below European standards. So there was also a little bit of a crisis momentum that allowed us to get some support for this. We have also worked with, I think I also mentioned this at the beginning, provinces are in the Netherlands the level which are responsible for the enactment of policies regarding our natural environment, so waterways, but also forests and so forth. They provide us with network, but also with cooperation, and they fund that local community manager that helps the sapling rescue volunteer groups. And lastly, we have a level of municipalities. And municipalities also have goals of increasing the tree cover because of heat stress, water management in our cities. And also a lot of research has been coming out, especially in Corona time, that people in cities were just utterly miserable because there was so little green around. So both health concerns, but also climate adaptation concerns has motivated some cities to work with us and provide spaces for tree hubs, but also share our events, provide some financial support to local groups so they can buy materials and spades and supplies and so forth. So we've actually been engaging with them quite a bit, and it's every season a little bit more. And you have, depending on how the political winds goes, some year you are incredibly popular and everybody wants to do something, and then the next one the political winds go a different way, and then you have to make do with less, and that's that's just a fact of life and a bit of an ongoing challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, really comprehensive answer and really useful. Yes, Rupert.
Yeah, I was. You've reminded me of what I was thinking of. Since we've left the common market, our farmers don't get grants just based on the land they've got. Now they have to do something for it. There's something called the SFI, Sustainable Farming Initiative. I'm wondering whether they're going to be able to get grants for planting these trees, or how it's going to fit into their grant scheme. We'll have to find that out. Because if you're going to get rid of a lot of trees, you're going to need farmers to plant them, I think. There'll be small areas of trees going locally, but it's really the farmers who've got to plant a lot of trees. But will these trees qualify? So we'll need to find that out. Have you had a problem with that, or you don't have a farming grant scheme for tree planting?
We do, and our trees qualify. Sometimes they can't use the grant necessarily for our trees because the grants are given to the farmer to buy trees, and our trees are obviously for free. But there are also other schemes where farmers can get some funding for hedgerow maintenance in exchange for planting a hedgerow. And that is obviously a very nice combination with the trees that we provide because they're indigenous, they're free. We help with the volunteers with the planting, and they get a grant for the maintenance of it. So there are several things that they can do. Also, they get, I believe they also get extra money from the I definitely don't know how to translate this. GLB, they get money from Europe for for a certain amount of acres based on some eco measures that they have enacted. And one of the eco measures usually is some type of forestry on their lands. So the fact that they have that on their land makes that they get more money for that particular acre that they have. So that is also supportive.
That's the same sort of grant as we get, I think, as well.
Yeah.
That's a higher level tier, not the basic level,
exactly.
but a higher level tier. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe you have bronze, silver, and gold at the moment.
Yes.
And the forestry bits are in silver and gold.
Yeah, so I think, Mick, we need to look into this. If you want any help, maybe we could investigate it.
I think it's a really good point that you've made, but if we're going to plant trees in the hundreds of thousands, you really need substantial areas of land to do it. But we're now hitting 9 o'clock, so I'm just going to, I know, Teresa, you've got your hand up, so we'll take that and we'll probably call that the last question. But thank you. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about hedgerows because there's quite a lot of sort of information about the benefits of trees planted in with hedgerows, and I'm just wondering if you've done work around that, because you did mention about hedgerows, and I'm just thinking that's a way in with farmers as well, isn't it? In that we could be planting more trees in hedgerow spaces.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the planting material that we've rescued are very useful to make hedgerows. So in the planting advice that we give people who sign up with us, hedgerows is one of the things that you can choose and read about. And we give advice on what species would fit, how you plant it. We also have a variation that it's specifically a hedgerow in combination with animals. For instance, there are certain trees that are particularly healthy for cows to eat. So we call that I believe we called it a cow apothecary a few times, where you have a hedgerow where there are species that are very edible for cows that they can nibble on, to encourage the more greener farmers to provide something for their cows.
Thank you.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. And then I'm just checking. Yeah, I think it's very positive comments in the chat, but I think we're probably done with questions for now. So I'm just going to say, Marga, thank you so much for coming and giving us that. I think it's been really, really interesting. Wonderful to hear about the success of your project in the Netherlands. I really hope that's something that we can try and replicate here. There is no doubt that if we're going to hit that target of 20% tree canopy cover in our area, then we need to be planting an awful lot of trees. So just before we wrap up, a couple of other things to mention. One is that the next meeting is on Thursday, the 21st of November. And our speaker then will be Emmy Williamson, who is going to follow up her previous talk on climate psychology by digging into some of the issues in more detail. Her previous talk was really popular and has been viewed loads of times on YouTube, so I think it's definitely one worth coming to. And also to say that we have the next of our informal in-person social events at the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery on Saturday, the 9th of November, from 2 till 4 downstairs in the cafe. Everyone's welcome to join us. Just an informal thing, so either pop in or come and stay. It would be lovely to see people. And thanks once again to Mark. I really appreciate your time and your expertise. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome. And I hope to hear that everybody was in the trees next Saturday, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Please do go and sign up if you're interested. I know it will be a good day out and you'll be doing a good thing. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you all.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.